Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement. It's Adrian After Dark, and it's a super mini mail call episode, and you'll be watching this on New Year's Day. So happy New Year's to everyone who's watching. I'm actually recording this, of course, a few days before, and yep, it's the evening, and I decided to change the lighting down here to blue. Figured that's kind of a good New Year's color. I don't know why. So let's jump right into it. Our first package here comes from Jonathan in Dacula, Georgia, D-A-C-U-L-A. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Hi to all my viewers from Georgia here in the United States. There's some stuff floating around in here. I wonder if that's candy. We have a note. Looks like we do. Oh, Bucky's Sours. Orange Blast. Oh boy. Retro Sours. Very interesting. But we have citrus flavor, tangerine, and mango. By the way, mango, I absolutely love mango. One of my favorites. Who makes these? Oh, that's hard to read due to the lighting here. Iconic Candy. I cannot even make that out due to the difficult to read packaging there. I know we're doing the letter out of order here. Bucky's, if you're not familiar, this is basically a chain of gas stations here in the United States that are pretty hard to describe. I have some photos of me at Bucky's. The first time I'd ever been to Bucky's, and that was when I went to VCF Dallas. Was that this year or was that last year? I think it was last year. Anyways, I went to Bucky's for the first time in my life, and yeah, it's like, they have 100 gas pumps and a huge store that's like the size of a supermarket, but they don't sell, well, they sell food and stuff, but they sell all this Bucky's themed stuff like this, plus candy and fresh pulled pork and all this meat, carved meat and sandwiches, and it's kind of hard to describe, to be honest. And as far as I'm aware, it's a Texas company, but they have open locations in several other states, kind of expanding outwards from Texas. There aren't any in Oregon that I'm familiar with. I think there aren't any on the West Coast, but they're creeping their way along to the West Coast. And that logo there, that's the little Bucky's logo. He's a little beaver, I guess, with little buck teeth. Let's go to the letter here. Dear Adrian, enclosed is the RBSC, or Russian Bear Service Crew, MSX2 HIC board from GitHub, compatible with many MSX2 systems, including the one that you recently showcased with video issues. This board handles the AV functionality and is known for common capacitor leakage. And by leakage, Jonathan means there are SMD caps on there, just like on a lot of Macs and Amigas, that completely leak and destroy the thing. And it's soldered right onto the main motherboard of the MSX2 computer. So the rest of the machine, which I featured on a recent mail call episode, is totally fine. It's just that video board is the problem. And it's what takes the video and amplifies it and buffers it and stuff like that, and creates the RGB signal, and that is damaged. So obviously we have a replacement board here, which Jonathan offered to send me, which is great because it's a kit and I'm really bad at building kits. So the fact I think this is already assembled means it should be relatively easy to install. I assembled this board with the help from my Atlanta Historical Computing Society friend, Mr. Tech Gadget, who graciously volunteered to solder as needed. His assistance was invaluable. I got him all the hard-to-find parts, SMD stencil, and he helped getting this put together. Wow, thank you. That's absolutely amazing. Saved me a bunch of work here. It's tested and calibrated for my MSX2 system, but you may need to adjust the onboard potentiometer for optimal performance on yours. I've also included the female header for easy installation into your system. Additionally, I've enclosed a few treats. The relaunched Retro Sours, reminiscence of the mid-2000s Altoid Sours. Ah, right! I remember those, and I liked them, and then they got discontinued pretty quickly. And a regional orange mince from Bucky's. Yes, that's how you pronounce Bucky's, B-U-C-E-E'. A popular mega gas station in our area. I hope you enjoy them. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to contact me with the information on the enclosed card. Best regards from John at the Atlanta Historical Computing Society. Freaking fantastic. Oh, right off the bat, I'd like to try some of these mango sours here. So the way you open these is you just push here and it pops the cap open. Oh yeah, look at these. They look great. That starts out really sour, and then the sour kind of wears off. It's, I guess, some like citric acid coating, and then you get the more sweet candy flavor as well. And it's a nice like tart mango flavor. It's great. Let's take a look at the sour orange blast from Bucky's here. Ah, so these are a little bit more chalky looking. I'm wondering if, well, maybe they always made these, or did they start making them after these came and went? And I don't really know why Altoids discontinued these products. Let's try one of these though. Okay, so Bucky's Sour Orange Blast. Not really that sour. It's more like a chewable vitamin C. They have this sort of orange, fake orange flavor. If you've ever had the kids ones, it reminds me a lot of that. Although it's a hard candy, so you kind of suck on it, but it's not sour at all compared to these, I don't think at least. And Sour Patch Kids, I think those are kind of universal around the world. They're not super sour, but they're more sour, at least initially, than these. They're not super sweet, which is kind of cool. So it's sort of a consistent sour, well, slightly tart, I'm gonna call it, flavor. These, on the other hand, at least the mango one, was far better, and a really tart flavor, and then kind of a sweet tart after the intensity wears off, which I really like. So Bucky's, I'm giving you like a 4 out of 10 for your Orange Blast, but the mango one that I had of this stuff, I'd rate that pretty highly. I'm gonna give that an 8 out of 10. All right, let's take a look at this little module here. So this has got to be the module. Ooh, yes. There it is, the replica board, NTSC HIC board with our trim and version number 1.2. I'm gonna have to go look at GitHub here to take a look at this. So this takes almost certainly the RGB signal that's coming out of, I think this has little pins here. Yeah, takes the RGB signal that is coming out of the motherboard, whatever the graphics chip, and there's a video encoder chip in here, probably the Sony one right here, that takes the RGB signal plus an NTSC clock signal, and that goes into this chip, and it's able to generate the composite video, plus look, it has an S-video header here because this chip can kind of do it all, and a buffered RGB output that probably goes through a header back to the connector on the back of the board. The MSX doesn't natively support S-video, hence the added additional pins there where you can make your own connector. And if you watched my recent video on the the NES Clone, the Lava RSC, that uses, I think, the same Sony chip or something very similar to it that does exactly the same thing. It takes an RGB input, and then that is converted to the composite video, S-video, and then another, buffered RGB signal. So that's a pretty normal way of creating a video signal on a lot of systems that have regular video output that originate in RGB. I have to commend John and Mr. Tech Gadget for doing some absolutely fantastic soldering work. I'm sure I could have done this. You can hand assemble this. You just have to place the resistors with a little bit of solder paste and then use hot air. But this board, the construction on this is freaking awesome looking. So we have pin head. Oh, it's double-sided, right? Stuff on the back side too. So there it is, the RBSC 2023, designed for Sony and Panasonic MSX and MSX2 Plus computers. Actually, you know what I'm gonna go do? I'm gonna grab the MSX2, I'm gonna open that thing up, and I'm just gonna quickly remove the old board, and we'll take a look at it, and then I'll install the new module, and then I can test to make sure that it's working. And I know, of course, it works. John said it was already tested. So here is the extremely slick Panasonic FSA1F MSX2 computer. I think this is a 2, it's not a 2 Plus, is it? Yes, it's a personal computer, MSX2. We got Japanese writing on here, we got English, we got a number pad over here with cool arrow key setup. Keyboard's a little mushy. Yeah, it's a little mushy, I must say. This thing does have a built-in floppy drive. I just love the button there. I really have to thank Peter for originally sending in this MSX2 machine, this Panasonic AF1. Thank you very much for that. The only MSX I've ever used is that Arabic one that I also have had a video on in the past, but it's a PAL unit, so I have to use a scan converter or whatnot. What's awesome about this is it's Japanese, which means NTSC. I can just plug it into any monitor here in the US, and it will just work. So let's see if I can remember how to take this thing apart. I struggled the first time. I don't think I have any screws on here, in here that is, but I recall there was some kind of clip situation. Ah, there we go. Okay, so I did not put the screws back in. Let's get that off the front. There we go. And there it is. There's the HIC board that's causing all the grief. So some of these parts can obviously be reused. Like there's that same Sony encoder chip, and whatever this is, probably like an amplifier buffer chip. But now I got to figure out how to get this off the board. All right, so it looks like the way this is attached to the board is there are these little thin, flexible pins, and they bend them over and then they solder them on. And I did lift one of these pads. It looks like there's been some rework done at some point on this. Oh boy, that's bad. What the heck? Oh boy. Okay, well, that's not what I expected to see. Definitely looked like there had been quite a lot of rework done to this board, which I guess is why it's just easier to make a new one. Okay, wow, and then this bodge wire under here, that is obviously not a factory option. All right, I got to get this out of here, the board that is, and then I can install the pin headers into here. I guess we need to fix this bodge. I suppose there's a lifted trace, probably goes from there, and it's supposed to go to that via right there. Why don't we test that actually? Okay, well, it goes to whatever this thick trace is, which you would think is just ground. Oh yeah, it is. Okay, so that's a ground pin, and I guess, I don't know. Why is this bodge here? All right, so what I got to do, and those are the screws from the case, is I need to get the motherboard out, because we're going to have to, or I will have to take those pins that are out of there and install the proper pin headers. What amuses me about these MSX machines, they're obviously built down to a cost. This thing, the construction quality, it's not like it's terrible, but it's definitely not super high quality either. Okay, there's this battery compartment down here. We got to figure out how to deal with that. Oh, it's another screw there. I think I just need to desolder those wires, I think. I must be missing another screw. There's one there. It's hard in this after dark mode. There's a bit less light than I normally have. That I have to, I think, take out as well. Does this connector come off? Yep, there we go. And that. Okay, I see there's a couple more screws at the top here. Oops. If you're not too familiar with MSX Standard and MSX2, basically this was an open standard that any manufacturer could make computers for, which is why you ended up having Panasonic and Sony and Casio and all these other companies making these computers here, and they were all compatible with each other. Then that meant that you were able to run software designed for that standard on any of these computers. Even if they looked different, they were still compatible. And it was pretty smart, because that was one of the issues with 8-bit computers, of course, Commodore, Atari, whatever. They were not compatible with each other. So that meant, obviously, you'd have a piece of software, your friends couldn't run it if you gave them a copy or whatever. Okay, so battery is disconnected. So this is the module here. This is what I'm going to have to get these pins off of. Okay, so a bunch of these should just come right out. Not all of them will, though. So I'll just gently wiggle them. Right, so far so good, actually. This ground wire fell off. Okay. That's a mess. That is a mess. Okay, so most of these came out without too much trouble. To get the rest out, I'm just going to apply some heat. And I'll probably have to clear those holes again. But this is the safe way to get these out. So we'll just give them a little heat till it moves. We can just pull those out, easy peasy. Obviously the ones on the ground planes, they're going to be the most difficult. Okay, how's that look? There's bits of stuff left behind there. We got to clean this up so I can properly inspect. Okay, this looks good. None of the traces are lifted. That one's a little messed up there. That's the ground plane. I'll have to clear some of these holes again. Not a problem. And I'm assuming that this is still connected. So I don't understand what that bodge wire was doing. All the holes are cleaned out now. So John nicely included the pin headers that I needed. So the best thing to do is to install the pin headers onto the board you're installing. And that way we know that the pin headers will be perfectly aligned. I'm struggling to get these on. Yeah, because what could happen is if I soldered those in and they were slightly angled, well, that would cause an issue. So now what we can do is we can just drop this into the board like so. Oh, it looks excellent in there. It really looks excellent. I'm just going to attach one pin on each side, just so I can make sure that this thing is properly aligned or pushed all the way down. Now that there's solder on there, I can just do this one again. And same with this one. It did move a little bit. All right, this looks okay. Not my best work, but should be fine. Now the cool thing is, this is removable. So we can pop this carefully out of these pins. There it is, popped out. What I wanted to check is that bodge wire that we had there. Let's see. Okay, it was this ground here, which was that pin. It went to one of these, didn't it? Yeah, I think it went to this pin. I mean, I'm getting good continuity on the multimeter there, no issues. So I don't really know why that was bodged. I am noticing a little bit of the solder mask has come up there. So I'm gonna install a little bit of nail polish on here. Oh, you know what? I normally like to use clear nail polish, but this is green, but good enough. These look like scratch marks. So 100% for sure that HIC board, the original one, had been removed from this computer at some point in the past. Okay, sweet, that'll dry. Let's just look at this real quick. Yeah, look at that. All this stuff just ripped right off. I'm wondering if it was, this must have been ripped before. And see how this is grounded from there to there? That's where that bodge was. So my assumption is the connection on the back side of the board wasn't making its way to the top side, so whatever up here needs the ground, that bodge wire was necessary for that, or vice versa, something like that. Okay, so I can carefully reinstall this. Oh, that went in nice and easily. Well, and now I think I need to go find the step down transformer so I can plug this thing in. And for testing, I haven't made an RGB cable yet. We can use the composite output, and that was messed up with the old module. If I flip this over, I have a note on the back where I wrote, works but missing green on video out. And that would have affected the RGB all the same, not just the composite video, since that Sony encoder chip right there, that was doing a conversion from RGB to composite, but also buffering the RGB. So the RGB output would have been just as messed up. I just did a quick look in my mail call box, and there it is. There's the step down transformer, the letter, and I also have this here, which I knew where this was here, the MSX Pico. So this is a multi-cart for the MSX. I think this works on the MSX2 as well. I'm pretty sure it's all compatible. Let's take a look at the voltage coming out of this thing here. There it is, 105 volts. It's looking good. So now I am safe to plug this in to that. All right, we are set to composite. Let's turn this on. Fingers crossed. Okay, why is it just green? That can't be right. That can't be right at all. Well, that's not good, is it? Reset button. I'm just checking to make sure that it's installed correctly. It does look like it. I see the pins are all aligned correctly. It's correctly installed, it is. I think I'm gonna need to pop it out though. We'll just have to inspect just to double check that the nothing is bent. Let's unplug the power first though. Okay, on the bottom of the board, all the pins are perfect. Everything's installed correctly. I mean, this looks good. That goes in very easily into the board there. All right, let's try again. Yeah. You know, let's reboot these RetroTink because I've had issues where it's done weird things in the past. So I power cycled it. Oh, look at that. It was the freaking RetroTink. This thing, ooh, the 5X Pro, it's hardly Pro. It causes all sorts of issues. Look at that, it looks awesome and it's freaking working. Why was it showing an all green screen? I don't know, because the RetroTink 5X Pro, it's kind of crap, obviously. Anyways, there we go. Power cycling it did the trick, and no more green problem. I'm assuming this, well, I don't actually know what this little potentiometer thing does on here. Why don't we twiddle that? Grab one of my ceramic tools for that. Let's find the right sized one. Is this a crystal oscillator adjustment or, okay, well, interesting. I do see some difference. If you look around the number 5, they're the 5 box. Look at those pieces of paper. As I turn this, it's probably something I can go to the GitHub repo for this project, which it is open source, by the way. And I can probably read up on exactly how to change that. All right, let's see. Let's press 7 for basic. MSX, looking good. 128K VRAM, nice. Booting up basic. You know, I didn't really do any testing on this computer. Oh, look at that. It works. MSX Basic version 2. Yes, the MSX standard, I think Microsoft had a hand in it, which is why all of these machines have Microsoft Basic on them. Happy New Year and welcome to 2025. All right, there it is. It's freaking working. No, Control C does not work. There's probably a break key. Stop. There it is. Stop, just paused it. Shift stop. Control stop. Okay, control stop did the trick. I really don't know MSX Basic at all. I wonder if the screen command works for like higher res modes and stuff. Wouldn't be surprised if this does allow you to use some of them. Okay, I've tried a few different ones and none of them seem to be giving me any kind of high res modes, which probably different color depths and things like that. Let's power this off and let's plug in this cartridge here. I don't know if it matters which one it goes into. We'll try the one on the back. I'm not 100% sure if there's even an SD card in there. Let's turn this on and see what happens. MSX VRAM 128K. Right, okay, there's 80 columns mode. Oh, I think I did try this, didn't I? Yes, I did. Now, from my understanding, the MSX2, and believe me, I'm talking out my behind right now because I really know nothing about this system. I think it's backwards compatible with MSX1. So any of the cartridges here that are for that, like Frogger almost certainly, will work. But this Contra 1989, it says 128K SCC. I don't know what that means. Frequency set to default, mapper, Konami SCC. Okay, so that's a type. It's set to 60 hertz. There's a turbo mode, mono mix. All right, let's just hit space, see what happens here. So this MSX Pico is freaking awesome because it, oh, maybe this is where I need to adjust the potentiometer. Maybe it'll be a bit too blown out. Ooh, look at those colors. 8-bit computer, everyone. 8-bit freaking computer. Oh, hey, all right. Okay, well, in Contra fashion, one hit is all it takes. I don't know how to do anything here except move left and right. So MSX2 added smooth scrolling, which this game does not appear to use. I don't know how to even duck. Yeah, so the original MSX, it used, oh, I think the down arrow key doesn't work very well because now I'm able to do it. Okay, I think I just had to. I was trying to say the MSX1 used the TMS 9918, so the same graphics processor as the Texas Instrument computer. It didn't really implement hardware scrolling. I think the color palette was a little bit different because it was a re-implementation. But as far as I'm aware, the MSX2 added a whole bunch more colors and smooth scrolling that this game doesn't appear to work or use. But you know what? If I had this, I would have been plenty happy. I guess by 1989, when this game came out, I had my Apple II GS. Therefore, I was kind of used to higher color games and stuff like that. But it's really cool that this is an 8-bit system that obviously has RGB, lots of colors, very capable. And now we have a way to play games much more easily based on this Raspberry Pi Pico here in a cartridge. I know basically none of these games here. Let's try this one here. This is another Konami game. Enhanced version only for MSX2 or higher. Toggle the VDP frequency between 50 and 60 hertz. PSG original sound. I don't even have this speaker hooked up. English text forced. E, I guess. 100 coins at start. 1. All right, let's try this. Another Konami game here. Look how the screen lights up my face in this dark basement because it's after dark and everything. I'm sure this has great sound that we're not listening to because I don't have anything hooked up. I suppose I should hook it up. Yeah, I thought I hit forced English text. Obviously, from a graphics standpoint, we are looking at the worst possible graphics here over composite video. Thing will look a lot better over RGB, it goes without saying. I am unfamiliar with this game, and it doesn't seem to have scrolling, and it's also very sluggish. I have a lot of learning to do about the MSX, and now that this thing is working, I have no excuse to not really try digging in a little further. Okay, I can't go any further. Looking at the chips that are soldered onto this thing, 1987 is the date. And I think from a graphics capability standpoint, it's very impressive what this thing can do for 1987. I'm not sure when the MSX2 computers started coming out. This is still an 8-bit computer. It uses bank switching for the main memory and obviously has 128K of video memory alone, which is a shocking amount. But for the Japanese market, there was a big emphasis on games and graphics, and that's really why this thing has so much RAM. I think this has, I forgot if I did the RAM upgrade. I'm pretty sure in this little package here, there was some additional memory to install for the main memory. But there was a lot of emphasis placed on graphics and sound in the Japanese market, and these machines were very, very capable. Game start. I thought this was a shmup, but this doesn't appear to be. This is some kind of like Tetris kind of thing, I guess. I don't know. Okay, I see. You have to build these up until you have a certain amount, and then they will clear themselves. Okay. Interesting. Kind of a cool concept. I would need to learn how to play this. Obviously, I died. Obviously, I died. I think in 1987, you know, the Amiga was out and the Atari ST, but a lot of people still had 8-bit computers. They were still buying 8-bit computers. I mean, look at that. The colors look amazing for an 8-bit computer. Absolutely amazing. Look at, it has fade in and out and everything. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. So John and Mr. Tech Gadget, thank you very much for putting together the HIC board for this thing. Clearly this old one here was in horrible shape, and I'm glad I didn't have to try to repair this, not with all the rip traces on the back. Definitely this modern replacement is the way to go if you have one of this thing, if you have one of these things, that is. And of course, it's not going to have any issues with leaky caps because I see it's got tantalums on there. Freaking awesome. So thanks very much for putting it together, sending that over. Huge thanks to Peter and everyone in Ontario for sending me over this MSX in the first place. And I'm definitely looking for tips and tricks and a primer on how to use this thing. If anyone has websites to look at and stuff, definitely let me know in the comment section. And yeah, like what games I should be playing. Because this obviously, yeah, it doesn't even have an SD card in here. So what's in here is what games are on here, that is, are just the ones that are built in to the Raspberry Pi Pico's flash memory. So it's a very small amount of flash memory. But it does have an SD card slot. And I know there is one included in this bag here of goodies I got from Peter. So yes, I'm pretty excited that this thing is fully operational now. I just got to make myself an RGB cable, and then I can start to really play around. All right, our next package here says perishable, in focus, there it is. Comes from Jonathan in Davenport, Florida. Hi to all my Florida viewers. 2 Johns in one video, that's pretty awesome. This box is pretty heavy. What's cool about USPS, by the way, these flat rate boxes, is you do not pay based on how heavy it is. It's just a flat rate. So if you're sending a few things or a lot of stuff, if you can squish it into one of these boxes, it doesn't matter. So I think there's a bunch of candy as like packing material in here, which is definitely packing material that I like a lot. We got a Haribo. Ooh, let me switch camera views there here. We got peppermint bark, freaking nice. Dark chocolate, very holiday season-esque. Milk chocolate marzipan log. Ooh, yes, I love it. Very holiday season-esque. Apple IIc ROM upgrade kit. What are we gonna get in here? Oh, zip disks. 750 megabyte zip disks. What's funny is I have a zip disk, one of these 750 megs, because someone locally here, probably 6 or 8 months ago, gave me a 750 megabyte zip drive, an internal one, and I went out and bought just one of these 750 megabyte zip disks. I personally did not know that 750 meg zip drives were a thing, and I'm wondering if that's what we have right here. This seems like a zip drive. I'm gonna unload all the stuff out of here, and we're gonna see if there's a letter in here. Well, there doesn't appear to be a letter in here. Now, I'm sure I've emailed John about this, but look, I didn't know I was going to be getting all these yummy goodies here. By yummy, I mean the candy and the cards for the computers. All right, Apple IIe 80 column card. Let's see this. Obviously, Apple II stuff mixed in here. So I think this is just a normal Apple IIe 80 column card. Yes, this is the very standard issue ones. The Apple had various versions of this. It really got down to the point where there were like 2 chips and, well, 4 chips total, like 2 RAM chips and these 2 chips. And that was the entire board. Yeah, you add this to the auxiliary slot on your Apple IIe, and that gives you the 80 column text capability. There was a version of this, as far as I'm aware, that only had like 2K of memory that only gave you 80 columns without the extra 64K of RAM extended or auxiliary RAM, which is what this card does. But yep, these are necessary in any 2E if you want to have double high-res graphics, double low-res graphics, or 80 column text. You need at least something plugged into this slot. Apple Quantum SCSI board. Okay, so yes, I think this comes from a hard drive, a Quantum hard drive, and it just has, oh, there's a loose screw there. This just has Apple firmware on it. So there's nothing specifically special about this. See, it says Quantum Corporation disk cache. I guess there's a bit of caching on here, a bit of RAM or whatever. But the firmware that is on here is Apple specific. I mean, it doesn't mean the drive's not compatible with other things. It just has some Apple header in there. And certain versions of the hard drive utilities on early Macs looked for Apple firmware in the drives, and they wouldn't just format any drive. It's really pretty terrible on Apple's part. It's like literally a normal SCSI drive, and they just add their name to the firmware, whatever they did, that made the drive work with their setup utility. Otherwise, you had to patch the setup utility. There's a way to do that. There's instructions online or whatever. You would patch the setup utility to then use any hard drive. So it was totally compatible with any hard drive, and yet Apple did silliness like that. So this obviously, it was taken off one of those Apple branded hard drives. You could always tell because it looked like a normal hard drive, but it had a little Apple sticker on it. So that would be the special firmware. Okay, we have the Gateway Ensoniq Vivo ISA, so some sound card here. So remember, Ensoniq made the sound chip for the Apple II GS. So this card's probably a wavetable synthesis card. So it's got the auto-red chip there. Okay, and this will be a codec. So this is what's converting the digital into analog. Based on the fact that this is Ensoniq here, this is almost certainly a ROM. So this will be the sound fonts, basically the instruments for the synthesizer on a card. So yeah, this will be General MIDI, which, you know, everyone had their implementation of General MIDI. That's funny. This must have come out of, what did it say on the bag here? Out of a Gateway. So it's an OEM card, and I guess it probably sat at the bottom of the computer, right on the bottom slot. And maybe this was there just to keep the card from bending and hitting the bottom of the case and shorting out. All right, here is a hard drive, and this is one that I was talking about. There it is, Apple hard drive 4DSC. So Quantum, I'm assuming this other board here is just an extra one of these boards. It probably came from one with a dead mech, so the mechanism had died somehow. But yep, something on here is Apple specific that makes it work with early Mac software without having to modify it or use third-party software. And we have another drive here, Apple Computer internal 5¼ inch HD, 160 megabytes. But yes, this is just a Quantum drive. They got Quantum to even take their name off. At least this one still has the Quantum sticker on it. But here they're just like, oh, make it really small because, you know, we're Apple. But same kind of things going on here. It's just obviously a much newer drive. Let's see what we have in the bubble wrap here. Is this like the zip drive or some kind of, oh no, this is I think this is an Apple floppy drive, I would take it. Yeah, okay, so this is from a later Macintosh, I would wager, or yep, based on the small connector there. I think that drive would actually work in some of the Macs that I have, but it doesn't fit, and it's just because this is like a PC half-height kind of thing, and the earlier Macintoshes all use the thicker Sony mechanism that kind of go back all the way to the very first Macintosh. Looks like we have another one. I think this might be a Sony mechanism though, even though it's the same like half-height size. Also comes from the later Mac. So there's the manual eject. Oh, it actually has a disc in there. Oh, that's funny. That's a way to transport the disc for the in vivo card or the Vivo card there, but it is absolutely a Macintosh floppy drive. And now Sony actually has a separate motor for the eject mechanism, but this one here is not the case. Who makes this anyways? Oh, it's a Mitsubishi drive. Or either that or they made the spindle motor. And I'm pretty sure this is a Sony. Yep, Sony. So the skinny version, again, of the Mac floppy drives. This is like a screw holder, but I'm not sure. Are there actually screws in there? Oh, are these these are Macintosh gears for the disk drives. Yeah. Well, I'm glad I didn't just like toss that away. Oh, that's awesome. For the older Sony drives that basically the gears always die on those, I have a little set of them here somewhere off to the side over there. A little tiny case that I keep these in. And you can buy 3D printed versions of these on eBay. I think resin printed, but I'm not sure these are resin printed. That kind of looks like it's perfect. So yeah, I don't know about that. That's awesome though, really freaking awesome. Because in the older drives, this is the eject mechanism right here, and inside of here, I've made videos about this, under this cover here is one of these gears, and it's designed to fail before the rest of the gear. So it always does fail, it kind of dies over time. And then, oh, look at this, some JB Weld, I think I broke this at some point, but this does work from my recollection. You pop this cover off, and then you can put these gears in there. So these gears allow you to bring your old Macintosh floppy drive back to life. All right, so in this little thing here, looks like a ROM chip for the 2C, I would presume at least. Does that go with this CD here? The Apple IIc upgrade kit? I kind of wonder what exactly they're offering with this upgrade kit. I suppose for people who don't have EPROM programmers, it's an easy way to upgrade the ROM on your 2C. You can just go and get the ROM online. It's really easy to find. It has like a boot menu and stuff like that, and you just flash it and install it. But I guess not everyone has that. So this must be the original ROM that came out of the 2C, I'm presuming, and was replaced with the upgrade ROM, which has the fancy boot menu and stuff like that. Oh, I didn't even notice this, by the way. This was from the previous section on the HIC board that came out in this little bag here. This is John's card, which he mentioned in the letter. Atlanta Historical Computer Society, there's their URL and the forums if you want to check it out, and John's call sign. That's cool. Thanks, John. I like a TI-99 and a Radio Shack aficionado. That's so awesome. All right, back to the goodies that John from Florida sent in. Let's see what happened here. It looks like the faceplate from the zip drive stayed in the packaging. This zip drive is just a normal 100 megabyte ATAPI one. It does not go with these 750 megabyte cartridges here. Looks like the faceplate has broken. Doesn't mean the drive doesn't work. It looks like some tape was on here to try to hold it together. I think something has gone very wrong with this drive. This is the eject and activity LED, and it's not supposed to be like this. So it probably would require disassembly to get this back together. It's doable, but what I wanted to show off is my 750 meg drive here that I wanted to make a video about. I had no idea that floppy disks, which are what these are, went up to 750 megabytes, but they did, because there's the drive, there are the disks. Now, one of the issues with 750 megabytes is it's backwards compatible, I think, with 250 cartridges, and maybe it can read the 100 cartridges, but I don't think it can write to either the 250 or the 100s. So it's not great from a compatibility standpoint. You have to kind of use these discs. I don't remember all the limitations, but I've totally been meaning to make a video about the 750 meg format and kind of compare it to the other ones just to show all the little ins and outs and idiosyncrasies of it. But I was honestly flabbergasted when I first got this because I never heard about this when it came out, because I think it was just an immediate flop when it was released. And the fact that these are just floppy disks in here. They're not hard drives, they're floppy disks. So 750 megabyte floppy disks, pretty darn cool. I'm not sure if there are any other floppy formats that ever got this big. If you know of any, please let me know, at least in this form factor, the 3.5-inch or size form factor. And the discs that go with this aren't the most common because this thing pretty much was dead on the vine. But you can see with the tick mark on here, by the way, I've already tested this, so it does work. I think I tested it with a 250 cartridge or disc, and it worked. So I haven't tried it with 750. But anyways, that'll be for a future video. Oh, look at this. There's a note. I didn't see it. So let's check out what it says now that we've opened up and looked at everything. Hey Adrian, here's a box of the sort of things you might find interesting. The floppy drives in the box require some work, and so does the sound card. Hey, might make an interesting chill troubleshooting session. The other stuff is functional. I've included some snacks because I didn't have room last time. Hope you are well, John. That's very nice. Thank you, John. I was just gonna take a look at the peppermint bark here because it's, you know, holiday season. It's perfect for something like this. And yeah, this is gonna be good. I like peppermint, and this looks like crushed up candy canes. I'm down with that. Oh yeah, that's delicious. That is freaking delicious. Okay, so in John's letter, he mentioned the sound card doesn't work. I wonder what's wrong with this. Oh, are those original or someone done the recapping on this? Okay, so this must have had SMD caps, the round can type electrolytic. And these tantalum electrolytics here, I guess, have been placed on here. So there's almost certainly a bad trace on the board. So let's mark this as such. I'm gonna put a question mark on it here. And I'll write John somewhere on here. I'll just put John right here. So I can remember this came from John. So yeah, this will need to be troubleshot, I guess. And we just probably have to bust out the microscope and start looking around here, especially here, for bad traces. I know I have another Ensoniq card, not this one, and I had to recap it. And it worked after I recapped it. But obviously, there's a good chance that we have a broken trace or some other connection that's bad on here that's causing issues. Oh, that's odd. There's a missing cap entirely. I mean, that could be the part of the problem right there, right? It looks like it never got reinstalled, or maybe it was never there in the first place. Not sure. The board looks like it's in pretty good shape, though. I don't immediately see any evidence of corrosion on here. You know, usually in this area, like around these pins here, you might see problems. It looks pretty good, though. What about these caps? They're missing as well. So that all could be part of it. If anyone knows of a high-res photo of this board, so I could see the cap values, that might be helpful. It could be these are just like bulk capacitance here, because these seem to go to thick traces, so it probably doesn't necessarily matter. Some of these might be used in like timing circuits and things like that though, and in that case, it does matter. As for the disk drives, I'm just gonna draw question marks on them. I don't have a Mac that could use these, as I said, but I can still test these on any other Macintosh. So we'll put question marks there. And then the two SCSI hard drives, I'll just put question marks for now on these as well. These are easy to test on anything. It's also useful to have some of these smaller capacity SCSI drives. You never know if you're gonna work on a Mac or rejuvenate something. I could just leave one of those in there. They're not trustworthy anymore for storing your sensitive files on there. It's nice to have these types of drives around if they work properly. But I gotta say, thanks John for sending these. These are very, very useful for me. And if anyone knows of a cheap place to buy more of these, let me know, because I think I have several Mac disk drives that need new gears. Okay, and there's one more package for this New Year's Day special. This one comes from, I can't tell, East Lansing, Michigan. I could tell that, but the sticker for my P.O. box was stuck over the name. So hi to all my viewers in Michigan. I have been to Michigan before, a few times actually, and I have family in Windsor, Ontario. So that's just across the river from Detroit. It's south of Detroit. Yes, Canada is south of the US. Did you know that? At least that part of the world, it is. So we have a little something here. It says MSX on it. Is this another MSX thing? And we have a letter and something here. Let's see. Adrian, greetings from Christmas past. Enclosed is a clone of the MSX TDC 600 floppy controller card. I did not design this, but I did assemble it. I had enough parts for a few extras, so I decided to make an extra one to send to you. I noticed that you have started probably posting a bit on the MSX, so I thought you might get a kick out of this card. I tried to use as new of components as possible for everything, but did have to use reclaimed chips for a couple of the components, specifically the ROM and the floppy controller. The floppy controller claims to be real, but I did have to get it off AliExpress, and we all know the reality there. Yeah, you know, a lot of times it does work, but who knows, right? It does work, so I'm hopeful that it is indeed real. I tested on both my Omega MSX and Panasonic FSA1 Mark II. I've used it with a twisted cable attached to a Gotek and a bog standard Sony 3.5-inch floppy drive. The jumpers on the card are in their default position, or so I believe, and this seems to work fine with a twisted cable. Twisted, by the way, is talking about PC style cable where the drive select and motor on signals are flipped around, just so you have the A and B on the cable versus a straight through cable. But I was not able to find consistent information on the settings, how they should be. I made a clumsy attempt at beveling the edge with sandpaper, and it seems to be fine, but I'm willing to admit that I am not an expert. Well, nor am I, Ray. It comes from Ray, by the way. I hope you're able to get some enjoyment out of this, Ray, and here's some links here. You use your circle search on Android or whatever it's called on iPhone, so you can select that URL. msx.org, wiki, talent, TDC 600, and there's a GitHub for the clone and the Omega MSX if you want to go down a rabbit hole, right? And I'm pretty sure that I have one of those PCBs that was sent in by a viewer maybe a year or two ago, or maybe it was someone locally, and maybe in Seattle who gave that to me. And it's a big MSX2 recreation, and I think you have to get some of the chips, a lot of the chips from AliExpress or whatnot, but they are available, the surface mount chips, and then you can make yourself an MSX2 computer from scratch, basically from scratch. So this is kind of cool. It's like 3D printed, but that texture is neat. Obviously this was bed down. Yeah, that was face up, so it's kind of got the shiny texture, but I've never seen that kind of carbon fiber-ish texture. Pretty sweet. I really like that, Ray. That's cool. So this is what I don't get. Floppy controller, where is this used? Is this a cartridge? Okay, so it's a cartridge. Okay, so this allows you to use floppy drives on your MSXs that don't have internal floppy drives. And by the way, the beveling, oh yeah, that's awesome. That's exactly what I do. I take a piece of sandpaper and you just do both sides and then you bevel your connector. I mean, really. Oh, you want to know something about beveling, by the way? I have a bunch of cards that I have made myself, like this ROM card, but my XT IDE card that you've seen on a million videos before with my PCs, plus my RAM card and some other stuff, and they do not have the beveled edge. And then people are like, you're going to wreck your slots if you plug it in and unplug it too many times without the bevel. Maybe that's the case if you plug it, unplug it a million times, but I have plugged that XT IDE card into so many computers and I've never had any issues whatsoever. I'm not saying don't take the 30 seconds to just like use sandpaper to bevel the card, but I never did it on any of these cards and it never seemed to matter. So yeah, I don't know, take that for what it's worth, just a little tidbit there. Anyhow, this is the clone here. So what is this chip here? The chip that's the floppy controller, I don't really recognize it. 32C765. Oh, it's a 765. Okay. Yeah, these are dirt common. NEC was, I think, the originator of this chip, and there are a million companies that made these. So yeah, you can easily find even the NEC ones around. I know I bought some off online and they were totally real. It's just a double density floppy controller chip. So any XT floppy controller card, like for XT era of PCs, and there's a ton of those multi-IO cards, all have this chip on them or one that's compatible with this. PC Junior uses this chip, like so many things use it. So if you are looking for these floppy controller chips, they're very easy to find. NEC 765. You don't need this specific one. I haven't even looked at the GitHub repo, but I'm sure that it says that this is an ultra common chip and is easy to find. I've never had problems with the ones I bought online. Anyhow, we're gonna have to look at the GitHub repo because I think this will allow you to use floppy drives on your MSX machines that don't have them. But this Panasonic MSX2 has a floppy drive in it. It does use a non-standard pinout. So Peter, who sent me this computer, sent me an adapter board that goes inside of this thing that will convert to a standard PC style 34-pin connector, allowing you to put a regular Gotek drive into here. I think that's the main point. Super familiar with is, are there games for the MSX that only come on floppy disks and do not come on cartridges? So is there a reason to really use the floppy drive? That's what I don't really know. Because obviously with the MSX Pico here, this project just allows you to use an SD card. So I don't know if there's any reason why you'd need to use a floppy drive as opposed to just building one of these up. And I recall inside of here is very simple because this is using one of the RP2040 clones that are out there that have like 8 megs of flash or 16 megs of flash and a multicolor LED, which is what is coming through the case right here. So these are very simple to make. In fact, I think I have one I made recently for the Atari, and here it is. It's the A8 Pico cart, and this for the Atari 8-bit line of computers is exactly the same. Uses the same Raspberry Pi RP2040 clone with the LED and the flash memory. So this does not have an SD card slot. So it's just a simple PCB with the Raspberry Pi stuck on it, and I printed this case. And yeah, pop it in. That's it. It just freaking works. It's so freaking awesome. And obviously that's what's happening here with the MSX Pico. Let's take a look at the original floppy controller though, that this clone is based on. It uses, yep, the Western Digital 37C65. So actually maybe that Western Digital chip was the original and the NEC was the clone. It is compatible with standard PC 3.5-inch drives and also 5.25-inch drives. Okay, but it is double density, so 360K, 720K, whatever, that's the MFM maximum you can fit on one of those discs. The interface includes a ROM, which is on this board here, with version 1 of Disk Basic. Looks like it originated out of Argentina, where I think MSX machines were pretty popular. And looks like someone has a schematic. Right, cool. Oh, we could probably take a look at the jumpers. Are there jumpers? But I'm not seeing jumpers on here. So I guess the jumpers were added to the version, the clone version, that is. Okay, here's the GitHub repo for the clone. It says it needs the Western Digital one or the Gold Star one, which is the one that's on here. I'm kind of skeptical about that. I've never found that they all weren't compatible with each other. Like you just use the NEC one as well. There aren't really any documentation on here, which is why Ray probably was a bit confused about how the jumpers work. Let's just see if we can figure that out here. And Ray says in the letter they used a twisted cable to get this to work. And yes, because the way this is wired up, absolutely always needs to have a twisted cable. The only thing these jumpers allow you to do is swap the 0 and 1 drive. So you have 2 drives hooked up on with the twist. You could swap their configuration by moving these jumpers around, because as you can see here, it just allows you to route the drive select 1 signal all the way to drive select 2 on the connector and vice versa. And you'd have to do the same configuration if you wanted to swap the motor on signals as well. What's not explained on the GitHub repo or on msx.org really was what this card is used for exactly. It's got to be the MSX machines without floppy controllers. What happens when I stick this into my Panasonic though, that already has a floppy drive? Does it conflict? I don't think it will conflict, but does the ROM conflict? Because that thing probably has disk commands in BASIC already, although maybe it doesn't. I'm not sure about that actually. So if you're aware of the answer to that question, then yes, comment down below, please. And let's take a quick look at the Omega to see if it was indeed what I thought it was. Yep, it's a DIY MSX2/2 Plus compatible machine whose project is open source. It's built with a combination of new chips, like stuff you could just buy off the shelf, and you have to buy original chips for like the graphics processor, like the Yamaha V9938, you know, this kind of stuff, and then the audio chip as well. And yes, this is absolutely the PCB that I have. It's a blank PCB, so it would need to be fully assembled. Yeah, that looks like the same graphics chip that's in the MSX Panasonic one here. What isn't the same is that thing has a bunch of surface mount chips, and this does not. So that's nice. Pretty nifty project. But yeah, probably I should at least try to get the custom chips, just so one day when I go to build up the thing, if those become impossible to find, I could actually make one. But there's a lot less of a urgency now that I actually have an MSX2 machine. All right, well, I think that's going to be it for this Super Mini Mail Call New Year's Day special video. I got to get this edited because I'm running out of time before the video needs to go live. So thanks very much to John and Ray for sending in this stuff. Cool that 2 of the 3 items happen to be MSX related, and that just looks really sweet as well. I'm sure there will be people watching who know lots about MSXs, so definitely comment down below. Let me know things I need to do and stuff like that, and I will try to read through those comments and take some notes, because I need that primer on MSXs, because I am pretty clueless. Oh, one thing, is there a 3D printed case for this floppy controller? That would be extremely nice, so I could plug this in and then have the cable come out, that would be very handy. So if anyone knows about that, let me know. I didn't see on the GitHub repo anything mentioned about 3D printed cases. There was the Gerbers and stuff there, but that was it. And I think that's going to be that. So I hope everyone had a wonderful, safe New Year's. It is now 2025 when you're watching this video. This will be the first video on my channel of 2025. I still can't believe I do this as a full-time living. Thanks to all my supporters. They make it possible I do this full-time. You can become a supporter. There's links down below. Comment down below. Subscribe. All the usual YouTube junk. And I think I'm going to try to clean up here a little bit. And yeah. That's going to be it. So stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.